I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for listening to Wheel Talk. We would love some more interaction with you all throughout this future episodes, and we would love to hear some listener questions. They may get on the episode.
Yeah, just submit them to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com, or you can submit them on our Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast. Thanks. Go!
Started.
Hello, Ryan.
Hi Becca, long time no talk.
I know, it's been a while. Has it just been a week?
I think it's been more than a week, because I was gone to Louisville on Thursday last week, and I don't think we were recorded last week.
I don't remember. I can't remember anything.
I don't know. So how's it going? How's your day been today?
It's been pretty good. I kind of took today off on purpose and, got sushi with Andrew and then I went to Lowe's to create a mold for making sponge holders, and then I bought all this shit and created this mold, and dang it, those policemen. Hopefully whoever they're going after is safe. Anyway, and I bought this I bought a nice piece of hemlock, 2x1 or whatever, and then all of this other stuff, and it was $20. And then I go to make this mold, and then I ended up just draping the stupid sponge holders over the wood.
Yeah, sponge holders. So I'm thinking the ones with the cutout, or it's something different?
Yeah, I'm trying to make hand-built sponge holders.
Oh, okay, which is just basically like a U-shape slab.
Yeah.
And you just ended up draping it over a 2x4 or something?
Yes, after making this ridiculous mold that was so dumb. So dumb. So, yeah,
So do you get to use the same 2x4 and just drape them over a 6-foot long 2x4 or something?
Yeah, but I cut the 2x4 down a few bit. Or it's a 1x2 actually. But I cut it down quite a bit. So, anyway, yeah. So I went and got stuff for a mold. I ended up using a piece of wood and four tape rolls to prop it up on. That's my mold. So that was great.
Nice.
But other than that, it's been good. Good to go. I have an update on wine glasses on July 1st. And
July 1st. This will be out before that, maybe. Probably not.
Probably not.
You'll be sold out by the time this comes out.
I might. I made all the things, and then I just have to glaze them, which is the worst part. So, but also I got rain on my advancer shelves, so I'm currently drying them out. It takes 36 hours to dry them out.
Yeah, I saw that on your Clay Buddies or something like that. You were asking about a schedule. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that schedule that they wrote out, could they not make that more intuitive on their site of how to do that? Or was that just an article you saw?
No, it's on their site. I think it is intuitive. I think that something you have to be kind of aware of is that advancer shelves are primarily for gas firing users. So cone 10 kilns and stuff like that. So the way that they phrased it makes sense, and it made sense regardless, but I have never done that schedule before, so I wanted to make sure, because the only thing that I didn't like about the paragraph of them explaining how to dry them out was at the very end they give you a choice. They're like, and then crank up the heat to 350 to 500 degrees for 18 hours. And I'm like, so am I doing this at 350 or 500 degrees?
Right.
Because,
what's the difference here? Is it based on how wet this thing is?
Right. And so
it's sitting in water.
I ended up going with 500 degrees. So we'll see. I don't think they'll explode or anything. I think that they would potentially explode at 8 to 1200 degrees. But yeah, so
wow.
I was going to just load my kiln and do the drying schedule and then fire the kiln after, but I decided not to.
Nice. So how did they get wet? Did you say they were in your vehicle or something?
No, they sit right next to the door, to my door, and usually rain doesn't come inside, but we had like a rain storm.
Ooh.
And I thought they were far enough over, and they weren't. And there was rain getting on just the side, and I probably could have fired them and been fine. But I don't want to chance it because every single one of them got wet on the corners, and so
Ew.
better safe than sorry.
Yeah, you paid a lot of money for those shells, so you want to treat them well.
For people that don't know what advancer shelves are, they're like these buco expensive shelves. I think they're like $200 for a half shelf.
For like
That's
a
the
small
cost.
kiln or like a regular large
For
size
a big
kiln?
for a big kiln. But I looked at I was gonna get some for my baby kiln, and they're like $200 for a full shelf for the baby kiln. So it's like not even.
Jeez.
I don't know. And it had, in my mind, I was like, okay, it makes sense to get them for the big kiln because, everything goes in that kiln. And for the baby kiln, I was like, this makes no sense. I'm just going to get regular shelves. Okay. So.
Especially if you're the one choosing what goes in that kiln. Like, hopefully it's for bisque or.
Like, it might be a
quick
good idea to
turnarounds.
get one. Because I might have a student that I know is going to, like, drip or, like one student puts glass on their stuff, so it's nice to put it under there just in case. But I also have pieces from a shelf that did break, and so sometimes I just put those on top of the shelf.
That's their shelf. Their designated shelf.
Right. So, how was your day?
Actually, work has been really productive the last week or so, so today was another productive day. These days fly by. I don't know if they're flying by for you. I don't know if it changes for people that don't have day jobs, but I feel like work is flying by between 9 and 5. Like nobody's
I'm
business.
indifferent.
Yeah, some days are quick, some days aren't.
Yeah.
So it just depend on whether you have like a busy schedule or a lot of stuff to do, or
I think it depends on if I'm tired that day.
okay.
Because if I'm tired, it's like, God, when is this day going to end? But today went pretty fast.
Yeah, so that was productive day, and then I went right in the studio. I helped Rachel with a little house project, and then went in the studio. I worked on finishing up some stuff yesterday that I was throwing yesterday. Yesterday was like the first time I threw in like a week and a half, maybe.
Well,
At least a week. Yeah, and I threw some new stuff today, so pretty productive. Kind of nice to get back to getting something done, even if it's like throwing 4 things or throwing some shot
Right.
glasses and some vases. Like, it's nice to get some things to the next stage of drawing.
it always
and-
reminds me of that song, like, one foot in front of the other. Like, that's how pottery is. If you're, like, in a slump, you just have to throw one piece and then the next piece.
Right.
And then the next. And it doesn't matter how slow that takes.
Yeah. So that's where we're at, and then we're just sitting here recording before we have a later interview tonight.
Yeah, Rachel is back.
Yeah, she's back at working. So she's working a couple days a week now. The airline she works for, Allegiant, they're flying at about 70% capacity compared to like what they were expecting for the year, or for the these months for the summer. So pretty good in relation to other airlines that are like more business airlines that are probably really struggling because those, if it's like anything like my company's not doing any company travel or employee travel through the rest of the year. So like those airlines are going to take a little bit more compared to like leisure airlines, because I know a lot of people are probably going to Florida now, and Vegas is open back up, so Allegiant is flying a lot.
Yes, indeed. Okay, what's the plan today?
All right, so we're going to talk about a question that we got through Instagram, and it was a little bit longer of a question and a good topic. It's kind of it is a hypothetical, I guess, that gives us a kind of some parameters to work within, and then we can also answer his question. So
And
the question came in.
We've done shows or episodes kind of on this already, but
Yeah,
seems
so
to come
it's
back
related
a
to like
lot.
home studio and stuff like that, and Justin gives us some parameters that should help us guide where we go with it. So this came from @justcooperson on Instagram, and essentially the question is, my sister and I have been members of a local clay studio that we love, but we're restricted to using only the clays and glazes the owner likes using and are dependent on the studio firing schedule. We're thinking of making home studios for ourselves. I'm wondering what your advice would be on what key pieces you would start with, where to spend money, maybe areas it's okay to skimp on. We don't have a lot of money, but figured spending some money on some equipment rather than monthly membership fees might be better. We'd share a kiln and keep it in my detached garage, but neither of us have ever actually used a kiln. Just looking for any advice or tips on starting up a home studio and when you knew you were ready to make that leap. So, quite a bit in there, but essentially they're trying to figure out. Go ahead.
And I thought the important part of the question is what was the essentials. What's essential and what's not?
And I did follow up with Justin to ask if it helped, if they could answer whether they were primarily wheel throwers or hand builders. And he said they would primarily wheel throw, but he is doing a little bit of hand building in the meantime. So
okay. I was going to ask that too, because that is actually a very important question.
Right.
It's a good job, Ryan.
I knew we needed some additional facts to figure out where to go. So given those parameters,
coming from a clay studio, just like mine, where they're not allowed to use different clays, I'll branch out a tiny bit, but not a lot, and they use my glazes. But with my clay studio, if they brought in mailto glazes and wanted to use those, I'd be like, go for it, don't care.
Is that because it's a commercial company that you trust their stuff?
Right. So, what, Ryan, is essential to you in a home studio?
Well, I would say they're primarily wheel throwers. They need some kind of wheel.
Well, that's a given.
Well, I mean, but that costs money. They don't own that already.
That's true. Okay, so a wheel is given.
A used wheel.
A used wheel. Also, we are recommending all used equipment in this lovely
scenario. If we're
talking
about we don't have a lot of money, used equipment is
the way to go.
Upfront criteria that we would recommend for sure.
Yeah, so if you can get used, do use. So a used wheel, I would say, let's see. Okay.
I can go with somewhere with it.
Yeah, go.
So one other thing that I would say, you need a space to work in. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to buy new tables and new shelving and stuff. You need like bare essentials. You need like a table, probably, to sit.
Preferably an outlet.
Yeah, you need an outlet somewhere. I mean, you can just use an extension cord if you need to.
Yeah, but preferably an outlet.
Yeah, for your wheel.
And then I would even say, because you're going to need music. Hello. Sorry. Continue.
They can just use their phone.
Also, they need to charge their phone. Okay, the table should be sturdy. Don't get a
a what? A funny table?
Don't get a folding table that has a crease in the middle. Because it folds in.
Is that essential to get started, though?
No, it's not essential, but here's where I'm coming from. If I was going to spend my money on something, I would spend my money on a really solid table. You know, if you can make it or reinforce your, I've used folding tables, but buy one that's flat. You know, that doesn't, because some of those tables fold in the middle and they have that crease in the middle. Buy one that's just flat.
But I think that's fine, though. It depends on what if you're just using it to, sit pots on while you're working or...
Okay, but we're going to get to that part. If you're a hand builder, a sturdy table is the most important thing in your studio.
Yes. But they said they were wheel throwers primarily.
He said that he does some hand building.
True. Yeah. I mean, a table is more
Anyway,
important for hand building for sure.
reinforce the fucking table. Just reinforce the table.
I was gonna say like all of my table and shelving situations, I've like got it all on Facebook Marketplace. I just like there's no shortage of furniture and shelving on Facebook Marketplace, depending on where you live. But I would say if you live in a reasonable area with a decent population, then you can get a table for $10. You can get a shelving unit for $10 or free.
Totally.
Or $30.
Totally. And if you get a table from Marketplace, like if you get a kitchen table, just sand the crap out of it. Sand it down so the shiny part is gone, so that you have a bare wood table. So that.
Or should they use like drywall or something like?
Yeah, you could use drywall too. I would prefer, like, if it was me and I was hand building, or even actually finishing pots that I've thrown, I prefer bare wood. But yeah, you could put like a cement board on it, but if you have an automatic sander, sanding it down's not that hard. You know?
True. So, yeah, wheel, shelving, table. Just for like storage, like you need to be able to store your wares somewhere, whether it's greenware, bisqueware, all that stuff. So shelving is important in my studio. What do you think for like wedging table, board, plaster? Do they need something like that? How would you recommend
That's why you need a sturdy table, because you don't need a wedging table if you have a sturdy table.
Good point.
That's all I'm saying.
Good point. The sturdy table is good for wedging. Because if you don't have a table that's against a wall, then it needs to be really sturdy.
Right, and I would say you don't need a wedging table if you have something like cement board or a slab, like a slab mat, or or just like an unfinished wood table. Then you can wedge directly onto that.
Right.
So that's really nice. I used to have a folding table, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this really well, but at the ceramic studio, they have these foam sticky boards, or like foam sticky mats that you can use and put on a bat so that you can trim on it, and it's like this really, really thin foam, and it got adhesive on the back, and what I would do is just take that whole square piece, and I adhered it, I stuck it to the table. And so when I needed to wedge, I wedged on that instead of the table part. So
that's confusing. So there's foam on the top of the table that you're wedging on?
Yeah. Well, okay. So see, I knew it was going to be confusing.
I'm like, why would you want to wedge into foam?
No, it's this adhesive foam, and it's like literally less than a 1/4 inch thick, and it's like really compressed foam, and you can put it on bats and stuff to help you trim. And I put that on my table, and it acts as kind of like a good surface to wedge on because clay doesn't stick to it as well.
Okay.
So I shouldn't have said that, but I did. Sorry. I just opened a bottle of wine. So
I'm drinking
get ready.
something too.
Get ready, Ryan. Okay,
what else? What's your recommendation for equipment outside of those?
Well, if you are going to do hand building, and I mean significant hand building, I would say some sort of a slab roller is ideal. If you don't have room for a big one, a smaller one, like a mini slab roller, usually works out just fine. Or if you're handy, you can make one really easily with a heavy-duty PVC pipe and some wires and a tutorial on YouTube. But
what's the cost of a mini slab roller?
I think they're like $400. So if you found one used, that'd probably be better. Or rolling pins work too.
Also, one other point that I did ask about that might help us. I asked if they currently sell their stuff. They do not.
Okay.
So
it's purely hobby.
Purely hobby right now. They would like to get to a point where they're at least breaking even. They do like one sale a year, I think. And I would see, the way I look at it, whatever their studio fee would be is what they're going to be using to invest into whatever equipment they're buying. So
yeah.
So I'm guessing they're not taking a pot of money to spend.
Totally. I also would like to say, like, have it be known that uh, branching off into your own is not cheap. That's why you pay the studio fee.
Because they have all the equipment you
Yeah,
you
because they
need,
have
and
everything that you need. Um, what else was I gonna say? So we have a wheel. Okay, and then we're talking about kiln, right? Kiln.
Sure.
Yeah. No matter how much you want to get a kiln with an electronic controller, it is not needed right off the bat. That's my opinion, and
And you're gonna learn so much without electronic controller.
Yeah. Look on YouTube, find videos by I think Simon Leach literally taught me everything I need to know about kilns. Like I didn't learn all that crap in college or from people. I learned most of it from YouTube. So, yeah, get a kiln. You're gonna need kiln shelves and kiln posts. Now, the one mistake that I made when I was starting my studio is that I bought kiln posts that were too high. It is better to have a bunch of smaller kiln posts as opposed to a bunch of large kiln posts. Like 6-inch posts, I never use because I don't make anything really 6 inches high. I mean, like I do a little bit, but if you have 23-inch posts, oh, and also make sure they're in sets of threes. So if you have 21 3-inch posts and 21 2-inch posts, you're better off sometimes with that than you are getting 21 5-inch posts. So
that's given that you're loading a kiln that is smaller, right?
Circular.
It has full shelves.
Yeah.
I mean, if it still segments of
right.
3 is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I use full shelves instead of half shelves. Ryan used half shelves. So.
Yeah, I have a lot of half shelves. Whatever kiln you get, you might, if you're buying it from someone, they'll probably have shelves that they'll bundle with it.
Mm-hmm.
And some kiln posts to get you started. Yeah, so you can find kilns out there. What's the best avenue you would say for finding a used kiln? I would say like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or.
Facebook is good. Marketplace is good. Craigslist is good. Also, those government auction sites are good.
It's called GovDeals, GovDeals
Yeah.
.com, maybe.
Schools get rid of those kilns like crazy. Like,
I mean, they're probably going to be bigger. Generally, right? They're going to be larger.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a 3 cubic foot or whatever.
I would, if I had no. Let's see, if I was just starting out and I had my pick of the crop of all the kiln sizes, I'd probably get a smaller kiln. Just because you're not going to be making as much stuff. And a smaller kiln is really a lot more manageable. It's a lot easier to load. It's a lot faster to fire. There's a lot of benefits to a smaller kiln. And what I mean by smaller kiln is about 2 feet high, 16 inches across. That's, I think, the size of my baby kiln.
Yeah. And
so
you're not gonna like mess up as much stuff in a smaller kiln like that as you're learning,
right.
which is good. You don't want to have a long lag time between firings and also screw a lot of stuff up as you're learning.
Yeah, I fired in a baby kiln for I think the first year, and I learned how to wire that kiln, and changing the elements in a small kiln is so much easier. And you learn the processes that you need to learn for operating a kiln.
Right.
So that, yeah, definitely. And try to buy used. If you can buy used, try to buy used. And I'm not even saying this because they're cheaper. I tell every single new person to get a used kiln. Because used kilns will teach you so much more about a kiln than a new kiln will. And
would you also tell somebody getting their first kiln to get a kiln sitter?
Yeah, I don't think that kilns really come without a kiln sitter.
I'm talking about between electronic controller and kiln sitter. You would say buy used, buy kiln sitter. For your first kiln.
Yes. Buy used, buy kiln sitter. And if you want to get an electronic controller within 3 months or whatever, that's fine. But just figure out, there's so much to be said about learning how to operate a kiln at its bare roots, like bare bones, you know? It's like driving a car. Like when you give a 16-year-old, when a 16-year-old buys a car, they buy the shittiest car on the market. And then they learn how to use it. They learn how to work on it. They learn how to fix it. And then they are responsible enough to get a new one. Don't ever buy a new car.
While we're on kilns, what about, they said they're going to be, let's see, detached garage is what I saw, but I'm trying to think. We'd share a kiln and keep it in my detached garage. Yeah. So ventilating, would you just say do the box fan method from what we talked about in the kiln venting episode?
It's 100% not necessary to vent a kiln
on a detached
in a garage, especially if it's summer. Just open up your freaking door.
Yeah. So you'll save some bucks there for sure.
Yeah, if it was someplace that you were living, I would say maybe vent it. But if you're not living, I don't know if you're living in your garage, but if you're not,
I would hope not.
And fire it like later at night when you're not going in there a lot,
Yeah.
What else is necessary? Like, what's necessary?
What about tools? Let's go to tools.
Oh, yes, tools. For me, my banding wheel is necessary. Like, I use it every single day, but that's not the case for a lot of people. Yeah. Ryan, it depends on how you apply your wax to the bases of your pieces, but Ryan and I both apply hot wax. I started off with cold wax. That's why I've always used the banding wheel. But hot wax, you need an electric skillet that you can buy at Goodwill, or you can buy the $25 one at Walmart. Buy the cheapest one.
You also don't need wax at all. You can just wipe your bottoms with a big sponge.
You totally can. If it's something that,
or you glaze in a way that you paint glaze on, and
totally.
You don't even get anything on the bottom.
Yeah. But if you're using wax, I recommend hot wax and just buy a shitty candle from Walmart and melt it down. But I don't know. How do you buy wax?
I buy Gulf Wax, GULF. It's paraffin wax. It's like 4 bars in a box, and it's like $2.50 a box.
Can you send me that link after?
It's at Walmart. I don't know. You can just go to Walmart. And it's in the canning
Walmart
section.
Sucks. They do not have wax in the canning section. I have spent 20 minutes.
It's so hard
in the
to find. There's
aisle.
like one row with it in it.
No, mine doesn't have it. They don't have it.
It's on like the very bottom shelf. It's so hard to find.
No.
Yeah. Otherwise, I was just using like
canning wax works.
But yeah.
Yeah, canning wax works.
Or no wax.
Or I use the huge wax white candles from Walmart that are really crappy, but they burn off and they smell terrible.
Yeah. What about? I think that's good for that.
Oh wait, what about? Let's go back to
we
tools.
said tools. Yeah, you said banding wheel. I never use a banding wheel. If I need something like a banding wheel, I'll use one of those like pretzel containers that are like square that you like get snacks in or whatever, and I'll put that on top of my wheel, and I'll put a piece like on top of that.
Oh, that makes sense. That's a good idea.
Head. If I need it elevated, that's usually when I'm like carving or something like that, so that it's accessible.
Yeah. Or you can find like a really cheap cake stand at Walmart too, or a Lazy Susan too, if you need to. If that's something that you need. Let's see. What I would do also is while you're working in the next couple of months, weeks, whatever, at your studio, take note at what you're using and what is important for you to use. Like, what are certain cookie cutters something that is necessary for you? Is a certain rib something that's necessary for you that you don't actually own? Is there something that you're using to make your life a little bit easier that you don't own, but they just provide because they have it?
Yeah. Maybe when you're going to your wheel, what tools do you take? Which tools are you using frequently that are getting dirty that you have to clean at the end of the session, and which ones don't even get touched?
Right. Yeah,
like
because
if you're usually using 2 or 3 tools, like a cutoff wire, a wooden knife, and a wooden rib. Maybe those are most important for you.
Yeah, I don't use like any tools at all. I use a sponge. You
use one of those knives, right, to undercut stuff?
I use a sponge and then the Kemper tool KA-17. And that's it. And a wire cutter, and that's it. That's my tools usage.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I still have a full thing of tools, like a cup that it has like 5 or 6 tools, and I rarely use them.
Yeah. You might be able to talk to the studio you're at and say, do you have any old tools that you're just going to throw away? And they might give you some of those or whatever. Or you could probably buy, some studios have used tools that they'll sell at a discount for like $1 a piece.
And I would imagine most people have tools. You know, like all of my students have their own tools that they use.
Yeah. Some studios require you to like buy a kit when you first take a class or something like that to keep your own set.
A lot of people would tell you canvas is something that's necessary. I disagree. I don't think canvas is necessary.
Yeah, I don't use... What would they use canvas for?
For like slabs and stuff, for like hand building and covering tables and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I would just... If I'm doing any wet clay stuff that's not like wheel stuff, I would use a drywall board that's taped on the edges.
Here's one.
I live by drywall.
Here's one that I think is important. You need 2 5-gallon buckets. One for dry scraps and one for wet scraps.
Sure.
That's overlooked a lot. So
I don't
what
use
I used
one as
to
large
do
as a 5-gallon bucket though for wet stuff. Do you just throw your slop in there from the wheel in a 5-gallon bucket?
Yeah, so you can do it 2 ways. Where do you throw all of your water?
My water is in my water bucket, and my slop goes in my slop bucket that's like probably a gallon on top of my wheel head.
Okay. What?
Right next to my water bucket.
Where does your water bucket go when you have to replenish it?
I dump the loose water off the top down the drain, and then the slip goes into another 5-gallon bucket. So yeah, that would be my wet 5-gallon bucket, which is just a bucket of slip.
Winning. Becca just won that argument.
But I thought you were talking about like wet clay right off the wheel. But essentially, yeah, I do have a wet clay bucket.
Yeah, a wet clay bucket. See, now I never put anything down the drain. I don't know if I would recommend that.
Well, I just dump the clear water off the top.
Yeah.
I don't dump that off until the next day.
Doesn't that require the water to like sit for a while?
Yeah, I dump it off the next day.
Oh, the next day. I always just dumped it in my yard. If you live in the country, just chuck it outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a wet bucket and a dry bucket. And the reason I say this is because if your wet bucket's too wet and you have some dry bucket, you can mix those together and then create a good reclaim. I like to have a 5-gallon bucket to hold my weighed out clay if you're into weighing clay, so that's only necessary if you're doing similar pieces. Let's see, plastic. Always need plastic. You can always get plastic from Lowe's while you're walking out the door in the wood section.
Yep.
They have it to cover up your load of wood. Yeah. So don't buy anything. Just get
or if somebody like goes to dry cleaners, those dry cleaner bags aren't a bad option.
Yeah. Right. That is a 150% necessary item in my studio.
Yes.
I feel like the necessary items are like the cheapest, most ridiculous items.
Yeah, they're not specific to pottery. It's just essential things that are part of the process.
Like 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets. If you're going to mix your own glazes, or if you are going to buy glazes that are pre-mixed in larger buckets, a drill with a mixer.
Yeah, I was going to get to glazes here. What else about glazes? How would you say somebody starting out? This would be hard. What would you recommend for glazes? Don't have a lot of money.
I didn't even know that they had commercial glazes when I started doing pottery, so that never even crossed my mind to like buy pre-mixed glazes. I always just figured out the recipes by doing some research. But now that I know about them, I think that I have to close the window. Talk.
Yeah. I would say it doesn't hurt to buy pre-made glazes. It depends on your skill level and what you want to learn. Obviously, if you're jumping into this for the first time, you're going to be learning the skills of running your own kiln. You're going to be learning how to maintain the kiln, how to,
Right.
pay for a wheel, how to
Choose
get
your
all the other
battles.
equipment you need. So, yeah, it's totally up to you. It's going to be quicker and easier to just buy stuff and then mix it.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're used to doing at your studio too. Are you usually dipping glazes in 5-gallon buckets, or are you painting on brushable glazes? If you're doing brushable glazes and you're comfortable with those, I mean, you could easily just buy the same glazes that they use there.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
maybe
think
that's worth doing.
Yeah, I think that the companies have made such good glazes that it's become unnecessary to make your own unless you are selling pieces specifically, getting like hoping for a certain style or something like that. So I would say that would be my compromise, is to buy glazes.
Yeah.
Oh, you need cones. You're going to need a cone sitter cone. So you need the small cones, and then you're going to need the larger cones. And if you're firing to cone 5, you want cone 4, 5, and 6. If you're firing to cone 6, you're going to need 5, 6, and 7. Always, whatever cone you're firing to, you want the one less and the one more. Right?
Yep. Yeah. One lower and the one above the number you're trying to go to.
But for your
What
kiln
about the
sitter,
cone sitter? What about the kiln sitter one? Which do you use in the kiln sitter? Let's say you're going to cone 6. Do you use a cone 6 or do you use a cone 7?
Use a cone 6 and you do a test firing first. And you put the cone 6 cone in there, and when it drops, you put your test cones in. And if your cone isn't melted enough, then you can adjust the kiln sitter, but to drop at a certain point, at a certain melting point.
You can also shift the placement of where the cone is sitting on it so that the bar is a little bit closer to the point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like to use the bar. I like to use the bars for cone sitters. Do you use the triangles or the bars?
I use the triangles. I think when I buy them, I only see the triangles when I buy them at the store. Well, I've only bought like one box of them.
Yeah, if you can find bars, the bars are really a lot more accurate because they are the same
shape
width
all the way across. Yeah.
All the way across. So, and if you can adjust your kiln to work with the bar, I would suggest the bars. The the triangle cones can be a different firing every single time.
Depending on how you sit it in there, yeah.
Yeah. What else?
So what if they did want to mix their own glazes? I mean, the upfront reason you would want to is you're going to save money.
Right.
It's going to take up more physical space to do it.
Okay.
You're going to learn a new skill, but it's going to save you money in the long run.
If you're going to mix your own glazes, ideally you want a contained area where only the glazes are mixed. You don't have to, but it's nice. So, but you're going to need all your chemicals, obviously. And then you'll need a sieve. I use a...
Mine's an 80 mesh.
I think I use a 60 mesh. I use a 60 mesh sieve. It sits right inside of a 5-gallon bucket. And you mix all your dry ingredients. You put in all your dry ingredients and then add them to water like you were adding plaster to water. So you spread them out evenly and then they sink to the bottom. Spread them out evenly and sink to the bottom. Oh, a necessity. A respirator. You have to have a respirator if you have your own studio. We should have said that first.
A respirator, yep. Why do you need that? In what situations do you need that, even if you're not mixing your own glazes?
Cleaning your studio. If you have to sand anything. Cleaning your studio. Sweeping your studio. Don't ever sweep your studio. But if you are going to do it in a respirator and then leave for the next 24 hours.
Get a mop.
Get a mop. Mixing reclaim. Anything anything with dry clay.
Trimming, if you're dry trimming, yeah.
Dry trimming, which we don't recommend
Don't
anyway.
do that, but
we also
if you had
realize
to,
that's a reality sometimes. Yeah.
Respirator, yep.
A respirator should be number 1, A1 on the top of your list. You can get them at any Sherwin-Williams paint store or any Lowe's. And
get the N95 ones, not just...
Yeah. Oh, and also they have these cool ones at Lowe's that are smaller and they're purple and blue. I don't know what they're called, or not at Lowe's, at Amazon, on Amazon, that are purple and blue, and they're smaller, and so they're a lot easier to work with.
I think I might know what you're talking about. Okay, so that takes care of the glazing part. What was the what other tools are you thinking? I was thinking reclaim. So how would you suggest they reclaim? So they got the bucket with the dry. You'll do the water. Can you just throw it out on backer board? Cement board.
The hardy boards, the one that they use for tile. Get those ones.
Hardy backer board. Throw it on there once you get a good amount in the bucket.
Oh my god, can I side story really quick? The guy at Lowe's today tried to fight me on the fact that hardy board doesn't absorb water. He was like, well, hardy board actually repels water, and I was like, incorrect. Hardy board actually takes in the water. That doesn't mean that they hurt the surface below, but they do absorb the water. And then I shit you not, I was reading something on Google trying to find a similar item that was not hardy board, and they were like, hardy board absorbs water, but it does repel it from the surface below. And I'm like, bitch. That's the wine talking. I apologize.
So were you technically both right?
No, he was wrong. Anyway.
You said repels water. Didn't he say repels water?
He said repels water. It does not repel water. It absorbs water and protects it from the surface below it.
Protects. Okay. I thought you said repels from the whatever.
Well, it does technically repel it from the surface below. Anyway, moving on.
So that'll get you through. Let's see. That'll get you through wedging, through making. What about like bats and stuff? Do you need bats? If you
you
are
don't need
throwing,
bats.
you can just take the bat pins off.
Yes, no.
Throw without bats.
That is the biggest misconception. If you do not have enough money to buy bats, don't freaking buy bats. Just throw it straight on the wheel, or just buy one plastic bat and throw on one plastic bat. But you are not required to throw with bats. You can take them off the bat pins and just BT dubs. If you do end up buying a new wheel and you get a Shimpo, the bat pins need to be tightened well at the very beginning before you even start using clay, because they are the shittiest bat pins in the whole world. So, just so you know. So what do we say? We said wheel, some sort of form to something to flatten slabs, either a rolling pin or a homemade slab roller or a mini slab roller. But a rolling pin is really the necessity. A table, a sturdy table. And
some kind of shelving to put stuff on.
A shelf to put things on. Preferably something. I mean, I've used those plastic shelves that you get at Lowe's that are like $20. But ideally, something like
something with some kind of metal, I would say. Yeah,
would be nice. Sturdier. And something that is not solid on the bottom is nice too, because then airflow goes through.
Oh, like the wire racks?
Yeah. I like wire racks personally, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
A sturdy table, a shelf, 5-gallon buckets.
5-gallon
buckets with lids, by the way, with lids. Plastic that you can get at Lowe's for free, and hardy backer board. That is really the necessities of a kiln.
What about the situation where you have to clean your wheel and clean up at the end of the session? What? I know some people don't have sinks, or they do have sinks, or.
Yeah, I never used a sink when I was when I had a home studio. So
Did you just have an extra 5-gallon bucket with water in it?
Negative. I always just used my throwing water to clean the wheel. But
where did you dump that? You always dumped it in the yard after?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would like stir up the water so that none of the clay stuck to the bottom, and then just dump it out in the yard, and I go fill it up again. You want like a floor sponge, like one of those bigger, like a car washing sponge, usually,
Right.
and
Yep.
then a smaller sponge is. I've always cleaned my wheel just with a regular sponge.
Yeah.
But
Basic throwing tools, basic trimming tools.
kiln shelves, kiln post, and kiln.
Right. And then you don't. What else after the fact? Yeah, you're still going to store your
probably
finished
kiln
stuff on
wash.
shelving.
I
Kiln
suppose
wash,
kiln
yeah.
wash. I use alumina and always have instead of kiln wash, but for newbies, kiln wash is nice.
Yeah. We mentioned the
Yep.
glazing stuff. What about I would say definitely get some kind of a kiln log so you're keeping track of what you're doing and as you're learning how to fire your kiln.
I.e. a notebook.
A notebook. Or you can write me and I can send you a kiln log Word doc and you can print it off and just fill it out as you're firing.
But honestly, also
a
notebook is really important.
Yeah,
Just
when you're writing your tests out and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Because I know computers are great, but sometimes it's so much faster just to write down the recipe on a piece of paper.
No, I
and
meant
do your
I
test
put it
from
in
there.
Word and I print it out, and then I have a binder with paper that I write down. But yeah,
Right,
you can just
because
handwrite it in a notebook if you want, without a chart or whatever.
And I think that's pretty much it.
You know, something we skipped?
What?
What are you making everything out of?
Oh, yeah, you need clay.
What would you say for buying clay? Would you go cheap and buy like reclaimed clay, like cheap clay from a studio, or would
No.
you say buy?
No. Be your
what?
best self. Buy the clay you want to buy.
So yeah, if you're used to using a certain clay at the studio, you can use whatever they have and just buy that in bulk and 500 pounds at a time or whatever. If you're making smaller stuff, you can always buy like 50-pound boxes and just go like 2 boxes at a time. You're going to save money the more you get at a time, so keep that in mind.
At the beginning, try out all the different clays that you want and then figure out which one you like the best. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we have to go.
Yes. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully, Justin, we answered your question. I know it was a lot. I'm sure other people are in this situation, especially with COVID stuff going on. They're out of their studios and they're trying to shift gears and have a place to work. So,
Yeah. Don't think too
hopefully
much about it. Get the basic things you need.
Yeah, don't feel like you have
And
to
then
be perfect right off the bat because you can grow into
can
this.
add.
You can sell stuff and then make money to replenish that. You can sell old equipment and then make some money on it to help pay toward the next thing you need to buy so you can upgrade.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're selling your work at some point so that you can offset some of those expenses. So,
Right. Okay, bye.
all right, bye. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you could find the podcast at wheeltalkpodcast. Or you could find myself at RD Ceramics. That's R's in Ryan, D's in Durban, Ceramics.
Or you can find me at 5 Lines Pottery Studio. That's the number 5. And don't forget, share this with your friends, like us on Instagram, and don't forget to write a review. It helps us an awful lot. Thanks.